we're moving on to how to ensure is it successful policy formulation and implementation? Okay. How can you ensure that the policy becomes successful? Okay. All right. So among them, I don't know, maybe even before I make a comment on that, in your view, what would you think are some of the things, since we have dealt much with policy formulation, different approaches, different reasons behind policy decisions, what would be your brief analysis in terms of how to make a policy successful?
I think, first of all, there has to be proper when we're talking about looking at the possible solutions to the problem that has been identified. Once you've done the research, then you also need to have proper planning when it comes to moving forward. How are we going to implement this? How are we going to structure the policy to make sure that it's effective? And then I think also there's a necessity to kind of reanalyze it at some point to assess, okay, is this working? Do we need to make any type of adjustments, or is it good? Yes. I think also there needs once the policy has been decided on, that you need to educate the public on the new policy. So making sure that you print it out, it's sent to the different stakeholders, that it's translated into the different local languages, so that the implementation is more of a smooth process.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, like we have said, policy making and implementation is quite a very involving process. So, take note of the key elements that we may need to take into consideration in order to ensure that the policy becomes successful. Of course, the first one being planning. So in planning, it means that you need to know what the policy will be made for, isn't it? What change do you want to bring about? Okay. What strategies are you going to use in order to ensure that this policy is formulated and implemented? Okay. What inputs are you going to have in place? Okay. What inputs would imply various stakeholders and all that? Okay. You need to have the time frame specified in terms of how long is the planning of this policy going to take place. Okay, how long is the implementation of this policy going to take place? When do we expect the outcome of the policy to be in place? Okay, so that is one key. Planning is the one of the priorities. Second, you go to policy design. Policy design now is implying the processes involved in coming up with a policy. What are these processes are you going to consider? Okay, who is going to be involved? Maybe what type of resources do you need for this policy to be in place? One of the things you have to be mindful is that, of course, when you're designing the policy, remember you need to have the human resource, the skills should be available. The type of some of the policies may require infrastructure. Okay, some of the policies may require equipment in order for them to be fully implemented. So when designing, take into consideration all those elements. Okay. At the same time, at the design stage, you also need to understand that the policy is an idea which is going to be on paper. Okay, how is it going to be framed? Okay, so that it is able to communicate those intentions, those ideas that you intend to have. Then third, you need to consider the reality. What is on the ground? Okay, the real world. What is the real world providing in relation to this policy that we want to formulate? Okay, it means that will require you to do some research in terms of what is the current state of things. Okay, when the policy is formulated and then it is implemented, what is the ideal situation that you would want things on the ground? What are the indicators which will demonstrate that this policy is now a success? Okay, so consider the real world situation in that. Then fourthly, you need to state clearly how the policy will be implemented. Okay, in terms of the procedures, the processes, how will this policy be implemented? Who be the implementers? Okay, who are the direct implementers of this policy? Okay, what will be the guiding principles in the process of implementing? All those things should be demonstrated. Then fifth, you look at ownership. Okay, for the policy to be successful, okay, those implementing it should feel the ownership of it. Okay, so in terms of for them to feel the ownership, it means that include them at the process of policy formulation, because so that they understand exactly, they understand the reasons behind what they are doing, rather than just imposing it on them. The moment you have a policy where people are not feeling the ownership, the chances of the policy succeeding becomes quite low, because they will feel detached from the ideas which the policy intends to achieve. Then the aspect of participation also quite important. That is number 6. Like you had indicated, for a policy to be successful, get as many as possible in terms of stakeholders, so that they put their input, they give their opinions, they give their fears, they demonstrate their expectations. That in itself be able to make the policy become a success, as opposed to when it is driven just by an individual. It becomes quite difficult because the majority will feel out of place. So during strategic planning, participation should be open to as many stakeholders as possible. If it is the education policy that you are doing, we have already highlighted who the key stakeholders may be. The teachers, the learners, maybe the parents, the other people in the education system. Is it the officials from the district, from the province, maybe from the national level, from the ministry? They all give their side, so that they are able to implement that policy effectively. I don't know. What do you take of that?
No, I mean, I think that's clear.
Okay.
I don't have much to say about it, I would say.
Okay, great. So when we go to the assessments on that unit, They're saying how different is the personalistic approach from the other two discussed earlier. So it means that the other two should be the technocratic approach and the bureaucratic approach.
Mm-hmm.
How different is the personalistic approach from the other two, which is bureaucratic or technocratic?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how would you be able to respond to that?
Okay. Well, I think the personalistic approach, this one is, I would say, more relational with probably like the stakeholders and the people in the community. And I think that it's focusing more on the broader kind of societal context compared to the bureaucratic approach and the technocratic approach. And then I think by doing that, they're able to have more of a holistic viewpoint on how the policy process how the policy process and how the approach can impact the community. So they're not taking the standpoint of, okay, you know best, we're the experts, we're the ones with an education. They realize the importance of the people on the ground, that we're going to be directly impacted by what is done. With the bureaucratic approach, this one is more a top down. So we have the hierarchy that's there. There's the clear division of labor as well. And I would say it's very impersonal. There's not that connection with the people on the ground. And it's going to be more like they probably have the mindset of it's not necessary. We don't want to distort our effectiveness by including them in the decision-making processes. It's a lot more, I would say, rigid. Rules, regulations, following things by the book. Whereby I think the personalistic approach is a bit more flexible, and they're able to probably better adapt because they're looking at the impact of how things are on the ground.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Quite clear. I also feel the personalistic approach is more, I think, can also be equated to the value approach. What do you think?
I'm sorry, you said the personalistic approach can be equated
to the value approach, the value or normative approach.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, I think because with the value approach, they're kind of looking at things, because they're looking at what are the norms and the values of the people in that community. And it could, in essence, one community may have completely different values than another. So it's not going to be like a one size fits all. So I think that's definitely true. There's definitely some points from the value decision that coincide with the
Okay. It's good that so that you don't get off, they don't catch you off guard on that. Can just walk out of the room and say, but how we didn't have anything on that. Okay. All right. I think that is where this particular module ends. We have to move on to the next one. Unless there are questions.
No, I would like to answer any questions.
Okay.